Identification tags tells the body that the cell belongs to it. So if a virus gets inside your body, the body's going to say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't belong here. We got to destroy it. Which is why actually it's very difficult if people receive organ transplants, like Mr. Daniel received an organ transplant, because the body wants to say, hey, look, this doesn't belong. We should get rid of it. So they have to take antiviral drugs and all kinds of other drugs to make sure the body doesn't get rid of this organ that it needs, because it's going to identify it as something outside of our body that doesn't belong. You can also have an autoimmune disease. That's where your body mistakenly says cells inside your body don't belong there. That's called an autoimmune disease, where your own body says, yeah, the cells are inside here, but they don't belong here. Well, they do. You've just made a mistake. Some cells are carriers. They carry large molecules across the membrane. Some of them are pumps. They pump molecules back and forth across the membrane. This happens in your muscles with the sodium-potassium pump. It pumps stuff so that as soon as I give my muscles, as soon as I send the signal from my brain to my muscle to act, it's able to send sodium in and potassium out, and it triggers that release where my then muscle can act. Pumps. And the last one is sensors. They detect hormones and relay information to the cells about the outside environment. So if I get startled and my adrenaline starts pumping because something scary happened to me, that's sensors, chemical releases in my brain that tells me, hey, you better get ready to either run, flight, or to stand your ground, fight, sometimes called the fight or flight reflex. So hormones are chemical messengers that tell your body to do things. Those would be sensor cells. Let's talk also a little bit about these organelles. Organelles are different organs within the body. If you'll notice in your note packet, there's a place for you to do some coloring. I'm going to grab my note packet here just a moment. And let's see, here it is. So let's explain this coloring is going to happen on page 6 with your colored pencils. You're going to have to color what's on page 6, this picture right here. And what I want you to do is color the part up here, the word like cell membrane, the one that says A, color that in a certain color, and then go down here and find A and color that the same color. If something has a star beside it, a star, that means that it's a whole unit. So you're not going to color anything with a star. It's just saying like the nucleus is this whole thing. But we're going to color individual parts of the nucleus, like the nuclear envelope and the nuclear pore and the nucleolus and the chromatin. All those things we're going to color different colors. A star simply means you're talking about a giant unit, and we're not going to color that one bit solid color. We're going to color its parts different colors. So anything with a star by it is simply saying that's a big unit, don't need to color it. Everything else, color everything, match it up. It should be self-explanatory. I wouldn't be surprised if a diagram like this appears on the test. Would not be surprised at all. All right, we're on page 7. We're talking about these organelles. And we're going to put the letter on the picture along with it, and then what it says and its function. So the first organelle is the cytoskeleton, J and N. Those are two features in the diagram. And it's microtubules and microfilaments made of protein. They kind of give structure. Think of like the steel work that holds the frame of a building together. The function is to form the inner framework of a cell, help a cell maintain its shape, give a cell rigidity, and to hold the organelles in place so that everything's not just kind of sloshing around and floating around without any framework. Here's an example of what the cytoskeleton looks like. These little tiny pieces, the microtubules, the filaments, the intermediate filaments, and they kind of just give some basic structure to the cell. G is the mitochondria, double membrane with inner folds. It kind of looks like a bean with a maze inside of it. And it is literally the power plant of the cell. This is where cellular respiration happens, where food molecules are broken down to produce ATP. Remember we said earlier, ATP is like dollars. It's like the currency. In order to get anything done, you have to pay somebody to do something. In order to get anything done in your body, you have to spend ATP. That's energy. The energy production process is aerobic. The word aerobic means with oxygen. So you have to have oxygen, which is why if you're working out really hard or running a long race, you start breathing really heavy. Why? Because I need lots of oxygen to have all those cells burn that energy so I can use my muscles. Mitochondria, again, looks like this. Notice it's got like a little maze inside of it, like a little bean with a maze. The power plant of the cell, mitochondria. We also have something called ribosomes. That's letter O in our diagram. RNA and proteins, that's what they make. Fixed ribosomes are bound or attached to the ER. Okay, so some of them are attached to the ER. Some of them are just free floating around, floating around in the cytoplasm. That's okay. There's lots of different places. Think of these as the kitchen. These are the place that makes proteins from amino acids. Proteins made by free ribosomes are scattered in the cytoplasm. Fixed ribosomes make proteins that are exported. To export means it's sent out of the cell somewhere else in the body where it's needed. These are found in all cells. All cells have ribosomes that make proteins. Protein is, and amino acids are one of the main things for cells to make for our body can function. Again, think of it as the kitchen where proteins are made. Here's an example of what the ribosome looks like. So again, you go inside there, it plugs in these letters, and out pops an amino acid. We have the endoplasmic reticulum. It's a big word to say, endoplasmic reticulum. So oftentimes people just call it the ER. There are two different kinds of ER. There's the rough ER, or RER, and the smooth ER, SER. Both of these, the rough ER has ribosomes attached. The smooth ER has no ribosomes. So it's got no little bumpy things, so that's why it's smooth. That makes sense. In the endoplasmic reticulum, it synthesizes. Synthesize is a fancy way to say put something together. It puts together proteins, carbs, and lipids, stores synthesized materials, and transport materials through the cell. It's kind of like the highway system. The highway system where stuff gets transported. So if you go to a Walmart and whatever you want to buy in a Walmart, some big truck had to bring it from a facility to that Walmart store. So think of the ER as like the highway system that transports the stuff that I need from one place to another place. The SER, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, makes lipids and carbs. The rough ER makes proteins. And here's kind of what it looks like. Notice the rough ER has all the dots on it on the bottom. Notice that the smooth ER has no ribosomes attached. H, let's talk about the Golgi bodies. Stacks of flattened membranes containing chambers. What this does is it packages the proteins that are made and ships them off to their destination. Think of the Golgi bodies as the post office. You take whatever package you want, you pack it all up, and then it gets shipped off to somewhere else. So when the cell makes proteins, it goes to the Golgi body, it packages it up, and it ships it to the part of the body that now needs that. That's kind of what it looks like. You can tell the difference between the Golgi body and the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is almost always attached to the nucleus. Golgi body is always separate from the nucleus, away on its own. They look otherwise very similar. Lysosomes, vesicles, again, vesicle, think of like a package, containing powerful digestive enzymes produced by the Golgi apparatus. They function, they clean up and recycling in the cell, helps to fight against disease, and they can actually destroy entire cells. Sometimes they're called suicide packets. Think of these as the garbage trucks or the waste management. So if the cell is like a giant city, that was in one of the videos that we watched, the cell is like a giant city, then every city produces garbage or waste. Who comes around and picks up the garbage and the waste? The garbage trucks or the sanitation department. Lysosomes are the cell's sanitation department. They come along, they release their enzymes, they dissolve whatever waste products need to get rid of. Sometimes in the process, they kill themselves, which is why they're called suicide packets. In getting rid of all the bad stuff or the garbage, sometimes they end up dying also. Here's what a lysosome looks like. Notice what it does is it fully envelops something bad and it destroys it, and then it's eventually kicked out of the cell. There's something called peroxisomes. There's no picture of this on the diagram, but these are vesicles containing degradative enzymes produced by exiting peroxisomes. They're like the lysosomes, but they have a specific function to break down fatty acids and other organic compounds. During reactions, they generate hydrogen peroxide. Other enzymes break apart the hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen so it doesn't damage the cell. So this is a special lysosome that gets rid of fatty acids. Fatty acids specifically broken apart by peroxisomes. Here's kind of what it looks like. The anatomy of a peroxisome looks kind of funky. Notice it's still got that lipid bilayer, and then it engulfs something and breaks apart the fatty acid, which the normal lysosomes can't do. Microvilli, they're also not in our diagram, but they are membrane extensions. They increase the surface area of the membrane on each cell that absorbs materials from the extracellular fluid. Microvilli. So like tiny little like finger projections, and when I have a finger projection, I've got more surface area for stuff to attach to. Look at all the places something could attach to the surface area. If it was like this, I only got one little place where it can attach. So it creates surface area for absorbing things better. Here's kind of what they look like. Notice how they stick out. The surface area is incredibly big and long, and lots of areas for things to attach to it. Microvilli. Centrioles. These are composed of microtubules and two centrioles that are always at right angles to each other, like a cross or an X. They're always at right angles. What they do is they create spindle fibers used during cell division. So when a cell divides and replicates itself, these are the main bodies that get everything started. We'll talk about that probably next week when we talk about cell division, and the process is called mitosis. Mitosis. Here's a picture of what they look like. Notice they're at right angles to each other. A bunch of little fibers. They are on your diagram for coloring those. We also have something called the cilia. These are membrane extensions containing microfilaments. Moves fluids or secretions across the cell's surface. An example is in your respiratory tract. So what happens is all these cilia are in your respiratory tract, and when you get a bunch of fluid and mucus in your respiratory tract, it will actually help take the fluid and push it forward so it eventually comes out as snot. And then you can get rid of it out of your body. So these literally move things along the surface so that stuff can get transported to where it needs to go. Cilia. They look like this. Notice all these little hairs. If you got some mucus that's on there, it's going to move the hairs across it and then move it on to the next one, eventually move it all the way out of your body. That is a cilia. There's just a couple more. The flagella. Not all cells have this. It's not in our picture. But the flagella is similar to the cilia, but it's longer and it's basically moved for movement. It allows like a whip of a tail to allow this through the surrounding fluid. Sperm is the only human cell with a flagella. So the sperm actually has to swim. It waves that flagella so that it can eventually get to the egg and then reproduce. Yep. So the flagella, the only human cell with a flagella is sperm. And there's a couple other organelles. These are found only in plants, the three of them. Cell wall. They give structure to the cell. That's why we build things like buildings out of plants, and trees are hard. Trees are so incredibly hard. Why? Because they have a cell wall made of cellulose. Vacuoles. Interesting, animal cells have vacuoles, but they're usually very small in size, like maybe like this. Inside plants, vacuoles look like this. And they're huge areas, and if they're storage areas, think of animal cell storage areas like your pockets, place where you can store little stuff. Inside of a plant cell, a vacuole is more like a closet, size-wise. Big closet that I can store a whole bunch of stuff in. So even though animal cells have vacuoles, they're very, very small in comparison. And the last one is chloroplasts. These are found only in plants. This is what allows plants to turn sunlight into energy. Chloroplast, that's what gives them the green color. Animal cells do not have that. So again, here's our diagram. I wouldn't be surprised if a diagram like this appeared on the test, as I've already mentioned. And let's see where we are in our notes. I think we got everywhere where we wanted to be. Let's double check. Other organelles, I covered that. Yep. So this is where we're at in our note packet for right now. And everyone at home or everyone who's not able to come to class, this is what you're going to go through. Label your packet all the way through cell 9. We'll pick this up later, probably next week, when we finish off our note packet and we have some information from the book. So going to close right now. Take care, God bless, and have a great day, everybody.